So this next video is awesome because it really shows you the fake news reality that Fox hosts are living in, and unfortunately many Fox viewers are living in. So here's what they're saying about the partial government shutdown that we're still currently in, at least as of the time of this recording. Take a look and then we'll discuss.
Our breaking news, the federal government now officially partially shut down.
You could shut down half of the government agencies, and literally it would be years, if it were not for the media, it would be years before the regular person, the normal, average, working American would even know that the department had been shut down in terms of, how much it affects their lives.
For families that rely on federal help for food, the shutdown could leave them with an empty table.
It's going to affect me because then I won't be able to come in here and buy my groceries.
I've been saying on the air that government shutdowns really don't matter as much anymore.
15 federal agencies are affected by the shutdown. 420,000 federal employees are working without pay, and 380,000 employees are now on unpaid leave or furlough.
Has anybody really felt the government shutdown? I mean, I went through the airport a couple of times since the government shutdown, didn't even notice it.
TSA frontline employees, many who make on average about $40,000 a year, which is much less than their federal employee counterparts, despite doing dangerous work of keeping airlines and passengers safe from terrorist attacks, most certainly live paycheck to paycheck. AFGE Local 1260 is hopeful that Congress will stop playing with federal employees' livelihoods by using us as political pawns.
Until we actually start feeling it, right now it's not. It's actually people's lives go on. It's called a partial shutdown for a reason. It's not a shutdown.
The people working just aren't getting paychecks, and it is coming around to the first of the month when rent and bills are due. And there are a lot of questions about, how do these people who are missing out on paychecks keep up with the regular demands of life?
With the shutdown, the impact, much of the federal government has not been touched. And a lot of people across the country don't even notice that part of the federal government is shut down.
When all else fail, the mortgage has to be paid. The heat has to stay on. I'm not in any danger, but right now, I don't know what February. Are we going into February? Then that changes the game altogether.
The so-called big government shutdown, which is never really a shutdown.
As for government homebuyer loans, the Federal Housing Authority tells us prospective homebuyers should expect delays in the processing of FHA loans. Meanwhile, small business owners also starting to feel the pinch, with loan applications helping startups obtain financing now being held up. But perhaps the most visible impact for those still traveling this week, our national parks. With decreased staff and closed bathrooms, reports are cropping up of Yosemite roads turning into toilets with human waste, along with a buildup of unkept trash.
The mail will be delivered, the military will be funded, law enforcement entitlement programs are pretty much unaffected.
Some small businesses are even feeling the impact. According to the National Parks Conservation Association, visitors spent about $18 million per day in December in communities with national parks. So lodges, restaurants, souvenir shops, and street vendors that cater to these areas are losing money as parks close.
Shutting down the government, and who's going to notice?
Both men were very frank with us that they need the cash. They are both raising their kids. Their household relies on that, on each of their paychecks every single 2 weeks. And when we were talking with them, they said it ultimately comes down to childcare, comes down to the groceries. And when they don't know what they're going to do, they have to turn to family for some help. They said the credit card charges are going to be ultimately being increased. And depending on how long this goes, does it ultimately turn into going and seeking a loan from the bank? These are very real conversations that are taking place in towns across the country as this government shutdown goes on and as negotiations take place up on Capitol Hill.
One of the biggest cons of my lifetime is the idea that the Republican Party is the friend of the working man. Now, this is not me saying that Democrats are the friend of the working man. I think both parties are massively corrupt and generally bad, but there are degrees of difference. There are levels here, and there are nuances at play. And for sure, the Republicans are not on your side. I mean, I explained it in a previous segment, but that's the Republicans' wet dream is what happens with the government shutdown, because most of the impact is felt by regular working people. You know, a lot of the stuff that's still funded, it's their favored government functions. So, and you see they're so selfish and so narrow-minded that they don't even realize, like these multi-millionaire Fox hosts don't even realize that, well, it's not affecting me directly, therefore, there's nothing to see here. I mean, by that logic, it's like, okay, I guess cancer isn't real because you don't have it. It's not that big of a deal. It hasn't affected me personally yet. And that's those blinders, man. That's those blinders that people on the far right just put on and proudly do so. You know, I feel like most people, it's not hard for them to do the basic intellectual exercise of, I'm going to put myself in that person's shoes and see everything from their perspective to see how I'd feel about this. Whereas these Fox hosts proudly do the opposite. Quote, I went through the airport and didn't notice it. What? Well, you know, is it really that hard for you to make that logical leap of, oh, these people aren't getting their paychecks? That could be an issue. But he didn't think about it because he's like, I don't know. Everything seems to be working fine. And then Greg Gutfeld was like, basically, well, yeah, this is whatever, quote, until we start feeling it. Bitch, you're a multimillionaire Fox host, and your job is not tied directly to the government. Well, you do Trump's bidding in terms of talking points, but that's neither here nor there. Obviously, other people are feeling it, but they can't fucking break free from the mindset of, does it affect me personally? And then another one, Lou Dobbs. Lou Dobbs, so out of touch. Who's going to notice that there's this partial government shutdown? It's comical. Like it's a caricature. They're a parody of themselves. Like, you can't parody that because it is a parody. They're just so massively out of touch. So don't let anybody ever tell you that they're the fan of the working man. They're just not. The one argument that they use to try to argue that they're on the side of the working man is about tax cuts. And they always say, well, listen, Steve Scalise just did it the other day, going after Ocasio-Cortez. He says, Republicans, we want to give you back more of your hard-earned money. Democrats, they want to take 70% of your money. Of course, that's a gross mischaracterization of the situation. Nowhere near true. Ocasio-Cortez floated a top marginal tax rate of 60 to 70%, which would be on income over $10 million a year. Only 16,000 people in a country of like 340 million would experience that. And historically, when you look at the proposals, Democrats actually want to cut taxes more for 90% of Americans. So what the far-right politicians do, and what Fox News does, is they pretend like Republicans are for cutting taxes, therefore they're on the side of the working man because they want you to keep more of your money. But they never go into the specifics of the plans, because if you go into the specifics of the plans, you find out very quickly Republicans would actually have the tax rate for regular folks be higher than Democrats would have it. Because when they say cutting taxes, they rarely mean for you. They usually mean for the top 1% or corporations. So it's a fraud. It's a fraud. They're not on your side. They never were. And this is just such a stark example of it right here. Because they don't even have like the trained rhetoric and talking points to pretend like they're reasonable, understanding, sympathetic people. You know, at least on the tax stuff, they're trained to pretend like they give a fuck. Like, oh yeah, I want to cut your taxes, even though they don't, and they won't do it, and they don't do it. But they pretend like they're for the regular guy. Yeah, you get a tax cut, not fucking, George Soros and Bill Gates and whoever the fuck else. This, they don't even have the talking points ready yet. So it's like the muscle that you have to flex to care about regular people, it's atrophied, and they just can't. They're like, I don't know, fuck it, I don't feel it, bitch. What's good now? What's good now is not you.